Our stories are not real and made for entertainment purposes only. Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. August Gus Harmon never considered himself a vengeful man until the day he discovered the truth about his wife. A former military intelligence officer turned security consultant, Gus had built his reputation on being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. At 42, he created a comfortable life, a sprawling Victorian home in the suburbs of Portland, 2 children he adored, and a marriage he thought was solid. Deirdre Harmon had been a passionate artist when they'd met 15 years ago. Her fiery temperament had drawn Gus in so different from his methodical, calculated approach to life. She'd filled their home with colour and chaos in equal measure, and for years the balance had worked. "You're never here," Deirdre had started saying about 3 years ago. "The kids barely know you. I barely know you anymore." Gus had been working 18-hour days building his security consulting firm, securing their financial future. "I'm doing this for us," he'd explained. "A few more years and I'll scale back." But Deirdre had grown distant, spending more time at the local art gallery where she volunteered. That's where she met Theodore "Teddy" Mercer, the gallery's new director, charming, sophisticated, and ever-present in a way Gus wasn't. Teddy represented everything Deirdre felt was missing from her marriage. The affair began subtly. Gus, despite his intelligence background, missed the signs at first: late nights at gallery events, new clothing, a renewed interest in her appearance. It wasn't until he noticed the changed password on her phone that his dormant professional instincts awakened. Gus didn't confront her immediately. Instead, he began collecting information like he would for any operation. He discovered the affair had been going on for 8 months. Teddy, he learned, had a history of pursuing wealthy, married women, though never leaving his previous conquests in better circumstances. One night, Gus found a draft email in Deirdre's account to her lawyer outlining her plan to file for divorce and seek full custody of their children, 12-year-old Leah and 10-year-old Owen. "I need to show that August is an absent father," she'd written. Teddy suggested documenting every missed school event and dinner. Another paragraph detailed how she planned to claim their house, the house that had been in Gus's family for 3 generations, that he'd renovated with his own hands. The house where his grandfather's secret room still existed, behind the library shelving, unknown to Deirdre or anyone else. The betrayal crystallized something inside Gus. The calm, rational man receded, and in his place emerged someone calculating in an entirely different way. When Deirdre finally served him with divorce papers, Gus did something that surprised her. He agreed to move out temporarily for the sake of the children. He took a small apartment downtown and appeared to throw himself into work, missing several court dates, which his lawyer attended on his behalf. "He's not even fighting for the house," Deirdre told Teddy on a call Gus monitored through the security system he'd installed years ago. A system whose advanced features Deirdre had never bothered to understand, or for the kids. It's like he doesn't care. What Deirdre didn't know was that Gus was building something far more valuable than a legal case. He was building a trap that would spring only when all the pieces were perfectly aligned. During this time, Gus cultivated a friendship with Judge Martha Winslow, who was assigned to their divorce case not through bribery or blackmail, but through a connection he discovered they shared. Her son had been killed in Afghanistan, in the same operation where Gus had earned his Silver Star. Gus visited the grave regularly and one day found the judge there. Their conversations never explicitly mentioned the divorce case, but a bond formed over shared grief and respect. Meanwhile, Gus leveraged his military contacts to investigate Teddy. The gallery director had left a trail of destruction in 3 different cities, changing his name slightly each time. He wasn't just a homewrecker, he was a sophisticated con artist who targeted wealthy women, isolated them from their families, then vanished with their assets. As the divorce proceeded, Gus appeared to stumble. His attorney seemed incompetent, missing filing deadlines and making weak arguments. The judge, despite her personal connection to Gus, had to rule based on the evidence presented, and that evidence painted Gus as uninterested in fighting for his family home or even shared custody. The day the final divorce decree was signed, awarding Deirdre the house and primary custody with Gus, receiving limited visitation rights and hefty alimony and child support obligations, Deirdre was ecstatic. Teddy had moved in weeks earlier, his own lease conveniently ending just as Gus moved out. "We did it," Deirdre whispered to Teddy as they left the courthouse. "He never saw it coming." But Gus had seen everything, and now the first phase of his plan was complete. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Deirdre decided to throw a party, not just any celebration, but an elaborate housewarming event to showcase her victory. She invited their entire social circle friends who had once been mutual neighbours' parents from the children's school, and even a few of Gus's business associates, who she thought might be useful connections for Teddy's gallery ambitions. Gus received an invitation to a final twist to the knife. The handwritten note read, "Come see what you've lost. The kids miss you even if I don't." The night of the party arrived, the Victorian home illuminated and filled with music. Guests mingled in the garden and throughout the first floor. Teddy played the perfect host, charming everyone with stories of his gallery plans and his devotion to Deirdre's artistic talent. At precisely 8:30 p.m, Gus appeared at the front door in an impeccable suit, a small gift bag in hand. Deirdre spotted him from across the room, her smile faltering momentarily before she composed herself and approached. "I'm surprised you came," she said loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "You invited me," Gus replied simply. That's when a sheriff's deputy appeared behind Gus, holding an envelope. "Deirdre Harmon?" the deputy asked. When she nodded, he handed her the envelope. "You've been served with a no trespassing order for this property, effective immediately." Deirdre laughed nervously. "There must be some mistake. This is my house. The court awarded it to me." "Not according to these documents," the deputy said. "The owner of record is requesting that you and all guests vacate immediately." "But I am the owner," Deirdre exclaimed, her voice rising as guests began to stare. The deputy looked at Gus. "Sir, as the holder of the order, would you like me to enforce this now?" "Just delivering it tonight is sufficient," Gus said calmly. "We can give everyone until morning." Deirdre ripped open the envelope, scanning the documents inside, her face drained of colour. "This is impossible," she whispered. Then her anger flared. "You're bluffing! This is some kind of sick trick! Enjoy being homeless!" She suddenly cackled loud enough for everyone to hear. "You lost everything, Gus. The house, the kids, your dignity. What exactly do you think you're doing?" Gus smiled faintly and made one call. He simply said, "Now," and hung up. Within minutes, another vehicle pulled up outside. This time it was the family lawyer, not Gus's incompetent divorce attorney, but his family's longtime counsel, Abigail Woodward. She carried a thick folder of documents. "The judge signed everything this afternoon," Abigail announced, handing copies to both Deirdre and Teddy. The property was never part of the marital assets. August's grandfather placed it in an irrevocable trust with very specific conditions. The trust was temporarily suspended during the marriage, but automatically reactivated upon divorce. "That's absurd! The judge gave me the house!" Deirdre screamed, the party now completely silent as guests watched the drama unfold. "Judge Winslow was operating with incomplete information," Abigail explained calmly. "These trust documents were sealed until today. The property reverts to the Harmon family trust with August as the sole trustee." The sheriff stepped forward again. "Ma'am, you have until noon tomorrow to remove your personal belongings. After that, anything remaining will be considered abandoned property." As reality sank in, Teddy pulled Deirdre aside, whispering urgently. Guests began making awkward excuses to leave. The children who had been upstairs appeared on the staircase, confused by the commotion. Leah, the 12-year-old, ran to her father. "Dad, what's happening? Mum said you gave us up." Before Gus could answer, Deirdre grabbed Leah's arm. "Go back upstairs. This doesn't concern you." "Actually," Gus said gently, "I filed for emergency custody reconsideration based on new evidence. We have a hearing tomorrow." Deirdre's face contorted with rage. "You can't do this. You abandoned us. Everyone knows it." I never abandoned anyone, Gus replied, his voice remaining steady. I've attended every school event, every doctor's appointment, and every parent-teacher conference for the past year. I have signed affidavits from their teachers, coaches, and doctors confirming my presence and involvement. As the party disintegrated into chaos, Teddy pulled Deirdre towards the kitchen for a private conversation. Gus's hidden microphones picked up every word. We need to leave tonight, Teddy urged. Pack what we can and go, my brother's cabin. What about the kids? Deirdre asked. Leave them with him for now. Once we're settled, we'll fight for custody again. Later that evening, as Gus sat in his car watching the house, the sheriff arrived with the custody order. Inside, Deirdre and Teddy were frantically packing suitcases and artwork. Gus's phone rang. It was Teddy. Please stop everything for the sake of your kids, Teddy pleaded, his voice panicked, and we can work something out. The children need stability. You should have thought about stability before you moved into my house and tried to steal my children, Gus replied. But I was just getting started. What do you want? Teddy asked, desperation evident in his voice. I want you gone by morning, Gus said. And if you ever contact Deirdre or my children again, what happens next will make tonight seem like a kindness. As he ended the call, Gus knew this was just the beginning of his plan. The house and the custody battle were merely the opening moves in a much larger game. Dawn broke over the Victorian house as Deirdre and Teddy finished loading their hastily packed belongings into Teddy's Range Rover. The children, confused and upset, watched from the porch with Gus. You're making a terrible mistake, Deirdre hissed at Gus. I'm going to fight this. I welcome it, Gus replied calmly. As they drove away, Teddy tried to reassure Deirdre. My attorney will tear apart this trust nonsense. We'll be back within a week. But when they arrived at Teddy's brother's cabin, there was no solace waiting. Instead, they found the local sheriff posting an eviction notice. Theodore Mercer, the sheriff asked. I have a warrant for your arrest for fraud and grand larceny in connection with art sales at the Westlake Gallery. Teddy paled. There must be some mistake. No mistake, the sheriff replied. Complaints were filed by multiple victims this morning, including evidence of forged provenance documents for several paintings sold through your gallery. As Teddy was handcuffed and placed in the sheriff's vehicle, he looked at Deirdre with genuine confusion. I don't understand. This isn't... But Deirdre wasn't listening. She was staring at her phone where notifications were flooding in. The gallery board had terminated her position. Their joint bank account had been frozen, and worst of all, photos had emerged on social media, photos of her and Teddy from before she'd filed for divorce, intimate images taken inside hotel rooms and the gallery office. This is Gus, she whispered. He's destroying everything. Meanwhile, Gus was settling back into the family home with the children. He'd hired a child psychologist to help them process the upheaval and worked remotely to spend more time with them. The secret room behind the library shelving had been converted into his command center, where he monitored the unfolding consequences of his carefully laid plans. Over the following weeks, Deirdre discovered the extent of Gus's strategy. The gallery board had received anonymous tips about irregularities in Teddy's sales records, not fabricated evidence, but actual discrepancies Gus had uncovered through meticulous investigation. The social media photos had been captured by private investigators Gus had hired months ago. Their release timed perfectly to undermine any sympathy Deirdre might receive. Most devastating was a revelation that Teddy had been planning to leave Deirdre all along. Gus arranged for Deirdre to receive copies of emails between Teddy and his next target, a wealthy widow in Seattle dating back to before the divorce was finalized. With Teddy in jail awaiting trial and her reputation in tatters, Deirdre finally called Gus. You've won, she said, her voice hollow. I'm leaving town. Just let me say goodbye to the kids. That's not how this works, Gus replied. You don't get to abandon them when things get difficult. Then what do you want from me? She demanded. I want you to face what you've done. Sign the revised custody agreement giving me primary custody. Then find an apartment nearby so you can have your scheduled visitation. Get a job. Be a mother, not a victim. And if I refuse, Then the next phase begins, Gus said simply. Deirdre signed the papers the next day. 3 months later, Deirdre had found a modest apartment and a job teaching art at a local community centre. She saw the children twice a week under supervision. Her relationship with them was strained, but healing slowly. Teddy, facing multiple felony charges, had tried to bargain for leniency by offering information on other art fraud schemes. His offer was declined. The prosecutor already had comprehensive evidence provided anonymously by an industry watchdog. One evening, Gus invited Deirdre to the house to discuss the children's summer plans. As they sat in the kitchen, now remodelled to erase any trace of her influence, Deirdre finally asked the question that had been haunting her. "How did you do it? How did you plan all this without me knowing?" Gus poured himself a cup of coffee before answering. "I learned in the military that the best weapon isn't the one you fire. It's the one you never have to use because your opponent has already lost. I didn't create Teddy's fraud or your betrayal. I just made sure there were consequences." "The trust," Deirdre said. "It never existed before, did it?" Gus allowed himself a small smile. "The Harmon family trust was established by my grandfather. That part was true, but the clause about divorce was added the day after I found your emails to your lawyer. Judge Winslow expedited the amendment filing and backdated the documents, a small favour for the man who tried to save her son." "You ruined my life," Deirdre whispered. "No," Gus corrected her. "I gave you exactly what you deserved. Nothing more, nothing less." As Deirdre left, Gus returned to his study. On his desk sat a framed photo of his military unit taken 15 years ago in Afghanistan. Next to it was a newer photo of him with Leia and Owen, their smiles genuine, despite the turmoil of recent months. In the secret room behind the shelving monitors still displayed surveillance feeds from various locations: Teddy's brother's cabin, Deirdre's apartment, the gallery. Gus switched them off one by one. The operation was complete. The threat was neutralized. He had protected what mattered most: his children and his legacy. The intelligence officer in him knew that vigilance was eternal. The father in him hoped that the worst was behind them. As for forgiveness, that was never part of the mission parameters. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen and I will see you there.